So I saw a article yesterday of a lady. They were saying that there was a lady in church who was flexing fancy label clothing or brand names over in church. I thought, yeah, let's come and talk about it. This is a lady. You see her flashing Galaxyboys, bamboo fan. This is bamboo Chinese fans and stuff. I'm not sure if this is a Methodist church or it's a Catholic church. It might be a Catholic church because Catholic church, the drum and what and all that kind of stuff. Now there are people next to her who just start cracking up and laughing, of course. It's a bit cringe, you know. She's an older lady. And I think Galaxyboys is a bit of a youth brand. And so maybe one of the nephews bought it, and now, you know, they borrowed her. So now she's like, hey, you know what? Hey, life is looking up right now. Hey, you mandams are waiting for 350s. And it's looking up. It's looking up now, you know. Testimony time. Being it that the church is the center for both those that have and those that don't have. The church is a place for where the message that's taken out shows the need from the one who has and the one who doesn't have. The message that reaches the masses in the church must be a message that both the rich and the poor need. Need. N-E-E-D. First, salvation. So you want to make sure that the majority of the message that comes from your pulpit pertains salvation. That's why when the Bible talks about us putting on the armor of God, it says, put on the helmet of salvation. It's not a helmet of telling people about hell. We have to constantly remind people, hell is not the gospel. You know, they go out there, get very excited about hell. Yeah, you'll burn. Yeah, that's not the gospel. The gospel is that Jesus died. You go to Corinthians when he actually describes the gospel. He says, this is the gospel you stand at. Was raised from the third day. And now that becomes our testimony. He says nothing about hell. In the subject matter of what the gospel is, he says nothing about hell. Because that relationship does not need a second party. It doesn't have a second party. To the unbeliever, he instructs us to salvation. To the believer, he instructs us to righteousness. You know, to a believer, expectation. Get better. If you start hearing, oh, you are amazing, you are wonderful, something is wrong. The message that comes from both the poor and the rich need. The rich people that don't need nothing, you know, they have it now. So if all you're talking about is God will bless you, God will do this for you, God will do this, the rich man has a likelihood of thinking they're talking about something that I already have. Now, also don't get the wrong idea. That does not mean we don't talk about the blessedness of a believer. Okay? Yes, there is that also. If you read 1 Peter, it's very clear, you know, to know the things that God has freely given us in this life and the life to come. But then at the same time, what is it that a believer, when he goes to church, what is the message he wants to hear on the pulpit? Let me tell you. You want the message of discipleship. Simple, cut straight. A lot of times when we say discipleship, people think we mean coming to church. A lot of times when you say discipleship, people think paying tithe. If there's a need in church, I'm donating. And they think that's just all discipleship it is. This is part of it. Okay? The things where I spend my money, all those things. This is part of discipleship. You see, discipleship is how a believer shapes his life to the likeness of Messiah for the encounters that others will have with them. How am I becoming a better person? Yeah, you see, so that message, both the believer who is rich and the believer who is poor both need. See, we can take a small subject like this. That's why I use news on this channel to teach biblical principles. Simple, cut straight. My whole goal in life is to do that. To take everyday stories and teach biblical principles. The message that the believer needs, both the one who's rich and the one who doesn't have, is discipleship. How better are you to the people out there? Because wealth shows a division. We might not be equal at that point. Now, what is the problem with this? Is this going to create a problem? Does the life of Mponeng, you remember that show, the SABC show that was called Mponeng? Mponeng was this life character who can't stand but be seen. She will do all kinds of things in order to be seen. She lives at a place where everybody's just pretty much the same, but she cannot stand being seen as equal with everybody. Luke chapter number 12 says, "Then he said to them, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed." You see, there isn't one kind of greed. Greed is not just money. Greed is not just having a lot of money. All kinds, the verse says, all kinds of greed. You'll see it when we were kids. They are dishing out food. One does not like that the other one seems to have gotten a piece that might be a smaller, bigger. This one does not. It's all kinds of greed. All kinds of greed. You must have 55 different outfits for the whole year. Sunday, you can't dress the same thing. You have to wear something new every single week. People will enter debt so that they can fit all kinds of greed. And then he says, life does not consist in the abundance of possession. After he states that, he then starts to tell a parable. He says, and he told them a parable. The ground of a certain man yielded an harvest. Then he talks about the plenty, and then I have no store left for me. And listen to what he says here. So he built bigger barns, this man them. He built bigger barns, tore them down, and then he built bigger ones. And then there I will store my surplus. So he had more than he needed. Did he think about how his surplus might be of benefit to others? No, he didn't. He stored. So a person can have, now we're not against wealth here, don't get the wrong idea. We're not against acquisition of wealth. We're not against people having more than. Okay? So don't get the wrong idea. We're not against people having money in their bank account. Because there's people who function off of a communist mindset. They think, no, we must just give others. That's communism. No, that's not what we are talking about. We are talking about a person who has more than enough, but they would just rather hold. Will store my surplus. It's very clear there is more than. God said to him, look at this, you fool, this night will your soul be demanded of you, basically. Why did you think that your acquisition was only for yourself? There's something it could have been for. Now remember, you have to take it from the context of what he was talking about. Earlier on, he spoke about the parable of the rich fool. He said someone in the crowd said, teacher, tell my brother to divide my inheritance with me. So someone was withholding and was not dividing. And so this brother had this perception that, his life will mean something when he has, right? So tell him to share. So this idea, sharing. Can you tell this brother to share with me? So that's where we see the context. Oh, okay. Jesus is teaching that I might have something and I can share it with someone else. But in that whole thing, there can be greed in that whole thing of wanting to be shared with. That's why they say, that's why you'll hear they saying that people that don't have can also be greedy, even though they don't have. In not having, they can be greedy. That's a very... So, greed is not just about having a lot. Greed goes to the extent of actually not having, but wanting. To a place where others' capabilities and business acumen and talents and being able to acquire can become offensive to you. How dare that person have money? You can literally be offended that other people have acquired. So all manner, that's why he said all types of greed, you have to guard. It's very difficult for someone to tell you because they can't know that. You must guard. That's why the verse says, guard against all manner, all kinds of greed. He wasn't talking about a greedy person who just wants, like Facebook, who wants to acquire everything, Microsoft. No one can do this particular type of thingy, Apple, the whole thing that Apple got fined for in Europe of suppressing the market, particularly when it comes to the App Store and all that kind of stuff. They don't want any competition. They want to run a monopoly on thingy. That we're not talking about that type of greed. That's one kind of greed. But there is a greed which can take over a person when they are consumed by getting. Not that they have. You can be consumed by wanting. Wanting something can consume you. Now you can't even sit down now. You must be up and down, up and down, up and down. Because you now spend way more than you should have spent on clothes. Now we must see that you are wearing a special hat. The hat one was, it almost became a thing, but it didn't take off. As we have very limited spaces, those American hats, they are huge, like this big. What? You ask yourself, what is the purpose? We sitting in church aisles, you have a hat like this big. I'm dressed like a peacock going to church. All manner of greed. Watch against all manner of greed. Before you know it, you start to take these things and you bring them to church. Because now everybody must see you. Now everybody must see your clothes. Now everybody must see this thing that you went and bought. It becomes a problem. It creates problems for other people. It's not necessary. It's Ricky. I'll tell me your thoughts down in the comment section. And I'll see you later on.